Welcome to the Ozone. I'm Robin Trimmingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guest today is Martin Rutte, who is co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work, and also the author of Project Heaven on Earth. This is part 2 of our discussion. Welcome back, Martin.
Thanks, Robin. Good to be with you.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Let's just dive straight in here. What is Project Heaven on Earth?
It's the idea that you can do something to create the kind of life and work and nation and world that your soul deeply longs for. A lot of my work as a consultant has been in visionary work, and I was very interested in people's vision for the ultimate life, work, nation, world. And with all the existential threats going on to humanity today, COVID, the environment, the threat of nuclear weapons, it's time for a new story of what it means to be human and what it means to be humanity, both the individual and the collective. And so this thought popped into my mind, Heaven on Earth. And a dear friend of mine, Richard Porter, said, wait, no, I was going to call it the Heaven on Earth Project. And he said, no, Project Heaven on Earth, because project is both a noun, you and I are working on this project, and it's also the verb to project heaven on earth as in a state of being. So thus was born this project, and it's about 30 years old. And there are people now all over the world who have begun their own projects inspired by this work.
Was there a watershed moment, an event that made you really decide to go for this, or was this sort of an evolving process?
No, watershed for sure. I was going to do a talk at a conference on spirituality and work in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've been doing a lot of work on that. I'm bringing that conversation into the workplace, not from an imposing proselytizing, but from really evoking. And before I was going to go on to do this keynote, I was sitting by myself in the green room thinking, well, if every business in the world is spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no, because business is the temporal power in the world today. If we could transform business, we could transform the world. And then this thought popped into my mind, oh, you mean heaven on earth? And I tell you, Robin, when I heard that phrase, my first thought was, no, you can't say that. But once I got over that and went, well, why not? Then I knew the next phase of my life would be devoted to that. I had no idea how to begin. People said, you're nuts, it's impossible, it can't be done. But my soul said, no, there's something here. There's something here.
I think you're absolutely right. I work with a lot of business leaders in the interviews that I do. And what I've come to realize is that if you have people at the top of the tree with the right mindset, anything becomes possible. And it's all about, creating a culture where we can discuss these things and figure out how they have business application.
Well, that's an interesting point you just raised, because what's just beginning to happen is my talking with businesses saying, in essence, if you had a magic wand, what's heaven on earth for your business? Mm-hmm. And man, does that open up new possibilities. Because the magic wand removes the necessity of having to know how. And they go, oh, heaven, and then they're off.
I think for equally, all of the introduction of the ESG initiatives, where we're talking much more directly about the environment and whether or not a company is supporting and protecting the environment or social equality, that's really changed the conversation.
Huge. In the sense of what does it mean to be a business? Well, previously it meant all I care about is money. And now we see what's called social license. Well, that's fine, but if you're not responsible with how you act toward the environment, toward other people, toward your employees, your customers, there is a price to pay for that. It's not legal, it's social, but it's just as powerful, and in some cases much more powerful.
You're absolutely right. And for public companies, there's a financial implication, because if you're not meeting the ESG mandates, then you're affecting shareholder value, and that's
You
not
are.
good for the company or anybody else involved.
It also doesn't draw the new talent that you want.
True, very
That's
true.
one. And it also doesn't do something which is really interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase discretionary energy. Do you know that phrase?
Perhaps say a little more.
I will, sorry. So you hire me to do a job and I get paid X to do A, B, C. Okay, fine. In addition to that, I can bring my own discretionary energy into the workplace.
Okay.
You can't make me do that. Only I can do that. And so if the workplace not only is profitable so that I know that I have employment, but also it does good in the world through its product or service, the tendency for me is to more likely give my discretionary energy. It's a huge value added to the business that the business can't demand. It can only elicit.
Yeah, I think I know this concept as engagement, and you're absolutely right. Speaking of this, can you give me a couple of examples of people or situations of how co-creating heaven on earth can take place in a person's life?
Let me start from the simple quote all the way up. So, as simple as a woman in Hawaii who grows microgreens. And she said, well, in little green things that take 10 days to grow and you grind them all up and drink them, they're very healthy. What can I do? I can't do anything about heaven on earth. Oh. So we thought about it. And she now puts her definition of heaven on earth, which is essentially recreating the Garden of Eden, at the end of every email that she sends out. A police officer in Texas has created a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement. Some business examples. A real estate agent in Halifax, Canada, was very concerned with homelessness. And so she came up with a program called A Home for Everyone, because my question to her is, what's heaven on earth for homelessness? And she said, well, obviously a home for everyone. Bang. And so she asked the agents in her agency, would you be willing to have $100 come off every commission check up to a maximum of $1,200 a year? And we'll do this program called A Home for Everyone. Last I spoke to her, they'd raised over $400,000. The publicity has been incredible. And she and the other agents feel good about what they're doing. I have a woman in Austria who decided her project, her Heaven on Earth project, is Austria is a heaven on earth nation. And I went, what? How could you think of such a thing? And she said, well, because it's simple. So what she taught me was, I don't know what your heaven on earth is, what's simple for you, but you do. And if you go on my website, projectheavenonearth.com, there are 3 questions there. The last one is, what simple action will you take? All the way up to a man, Robin, from Gabon, Africa, who now lives in Canada as well, who has as his project, Africa, a heaven on earth continent. Unbelievable. A newspaper in Dehradun, India, has on its masthead now, Dehradun, a heaven on earth city. That comes out with every publication. So it's inculcated in the mindset of the people there. A woman in Portugal who's created a website, a heaven on earth website in Portuguese for the 250 million Portuguese speaking people in the world. I can go on and on. What you get here is when people discover what heaven on earth is for them and take an action that's simple by their definition, the creativity and the impact is enormous.
It certainly is. And what I love so much about this is there's no real limit regarding how far all of this can go.
No, all the way from a woman adding a phrase on the end of her email, right? All the way up to a guy taking on an entire continent.
Yeah. So that at a certain point, though, the universe will align, the dots will connect. You're going to hit critical mass with people all over the world playing their part in some respect or other. So what's that going to look like? What's going to happen at that point?
My best answer is I doesn't know. I and we will find out.
Yeah.
What I do know is that I said in the previous interview, if you go to Google and put in the phrase heaven on earth in quotes, 2020, you'll get about 4.5, 5.5 million. If you do that for 2021, there's already, and we're not even 11 months through the year, a 47.7% rise in the number of mentions of the phrase heaven on earth globally, in English, not from me only, from all other kinds of people. So I know that underneath the surface, it's building and building and building. And as you said very beautifully, it will reach a critical mass. When? I don't know. And what will happen then? I don't know. I think generally it will be easier. It will become a conversation. I have this dream that, I get on a plane, whatever, remember those things? I get on a plane and I don't know you, and you sit down beside me, we talk, the usual question, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, what are you doing for heaven on earth? And you answer, and you ask me the same question, and I answer. And it's just part of the normal conversation of being human. And Robin, the humanity, you and I and humanity gets the experience that the ship is now sailing in the correct direction. It's a visceral, tangible feeling. I get it. It's beginning to work. That, I think, will also come into play.
I think it opens the door to some very thought-provoking conversations and, transformative thinking about what the world could be like if. When, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, next week, next year, whatever. How can people who see this video find out more about all of this?
Well, you can go, first of all, to Amazon and order my book, Project Heaven on Earth. You can go to my website, projectheavenonearth.com, and you'll get a free 7-day course, Heaven on Earth course, and you'll also get a weekly blog. The purpose of the weekly blog is to normalize this. So I come at Heaven on Earth from all different perspectives, dimensions. Think of like a diamond with all these little facets. And so it becomes more and more and more normal for you to hear the phrase heaven on earth and for you to speak the phrase heaven on earth. That's the effect that you can have in addition to any heaven on earth project that you decide to do.
That's very interesting. I think that's how you're going to tell when it's hit critical mass, when you hear that in normal conversation.
Lovely. Well said.
Well, Martin, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. You've been watching The Ozone. If you have a comment or a question about this series, you can reach out to us at Bill, that's BILL, @olderhood.com. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.